Asterisk the morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Jefferson Elementary, casting long shadows across the polished hallways. Margaret Sullivan adjusted her worn leather satchel on her shoulder and took a deep breath after 23 years of teaching. She still felt that familiar flutter of anticipation each morning, though lately it had been mixed with something else, worry. Asterisk she paused outside her third-grade classroom, watching 8-year-old Tommy Henderson through the class. He was already at his desk, hunched over a piece of paper, his blonde hair falling into his eyes. His clothes were the same ones he'd worn yesterday, and the day before that. Margaret's heart squeezed with familiar concern. Asterisk, good morning, Tommy, she said softly as she entered the room, her voice carrying the gentle warmth that had comforted thousands of children over the years. Asterisk Tommy looked up, his face brightening, with the kind of pure smile that reminded Margaret why she'd chosen this profession. Morning, Mrs. Sullivan. I finished my math homework. Asterisk Margaret knew there was more to the story. Tommy often stayed after school, working quietly at his desk. While she graded papers, she'd noticed how he seemed reluctant to leave, how he lingered by her classroom door. She'd started keeping granola bars in her desk drawer, offering them casually when she noticed he looked particularly thin. Asterisk the day progressed with its usual rhythm of lessons and laughter. But Margaret's attention kept drifting to Tommy during lunch. While other children chatted excitedly about weekend plans, he sat alone, slowly eating the free meal provided by the school. His shoes, she noticed, had a small hole near the toe. Asterisk after the final bell rang and the classroom emptied, Tommy remained at his desk. Margaret approached him gently, pulling up a small chair beside him. Asterisk Tommy, sweetheart, is everything all right at home? Asterisk the 8-year-old's shoulders sagged slightly. Mom's working real hard. Mrs. Sullivan, she has 2 jobs now, and sometimes she's real tired when she gets home. He paused, then added quietly, Dad left last month. Mom cries sometimes when she thinks I'm asleep. Asterisk Margaret felt her throat tighten. She'd seen this story too many times, but it never got easier. You know what, Tommy, I was thinking, would you like to help me organize the classroom supplies after school? I could use an assistant, and maybe we could have a snack while we work. Asterisk Tommy's face lit up. Really, I'd like that a lot. Asterisk for the next several weeks, this became their routine. Tommy would help Margaret straighten books, clean whiteboards, and organize art supplies. In return, she'd make sure he had something to eat and help him with homework. She began keeping extra clothes in her closet, mentioning casually that another student had left them behind when Tommy's shirts became too worn. Asterisk Margaret thought she was being discreet, but Principal Harrison had been watching. David Harrison was a man who valued rules above relationships, efficiency above empathy. He was younger than Margaret by 15 years and had modern ideas about educational boundaries and liability co. In Sierra Asterisk one cold Tuesday afternoon, he appeared in her doorway just as she was helping Tommy into a warm jacket. Asterisk Mrs. Sullivan, I need to speak with you privately. Asterisk Tommy gathered his things quickly, sensing the tension. Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan, see you tomorrow. Asterisk see you tomorrow. Dear, she replied, her voice steady despite the unease growing in her chest. Asterisk Principal Harrison waited until Tommy's footsteps faded down the hallway. Margaret, we need to discuss your extracurricular activities with Tommy Henderson. Asterisk I'm not sure what you mean. David. Asterisk the clothing, the food, the after-school tutoring. You're overstepping professional boundaries. We have protocols for these situations. There are proper channels, social services. Asterisk the child is hungry and cold. Margaret interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. His mother is doing her best, working to jobs, sometimes doing what's right matters more than following every rule. Asterisk Principal Harrison's expression hardened. This school district has policies for a reason. You're creating liability issues and setting precedents we can't sustain. I'm ordering you to stop this immediate intervention and refer the case through proper channels. Asterisk Margaret looked at him steadily. And if I don't, asterisk, then you'll be looking for another position. Asterisk that evening, Margaret sat in her small kitchen, grading papers and thinking about Tommy's smile, about the way he'd started participating more in class discussions, about how proud he'd been when he'd helped her create a bulletin board display. She thought about 23 years of teaching, of hundreds of children who'd passed through her classroom, of the difference one caring adult could make in a young life. Asterisk the next morning, she continued her routine with Tommy. She helped him with his reading, shared her apple slices during lunch, and walked him to the bus line after school, making sure he had his warm jacket zipped up tight. Asterisk 2 days later, she received the termination letter. Asterisk the news spread quickly through the small community. Parents who'd had Margaret as their children's teacher were outraged, former students. Now adults with children of their own wrote letters to the school board, but the decision stood. Budget constraints, they said, restructuring, professional boundary issues. Asterisk Margaret packed her classroom with quiet dignity, Tommy helping her carry boxes to her car. Other teachers hugged her goodbye, many with tears in their eyes. She'd been more than a colleague to them. She'd been a mentor, a friend, a reminder of why they'd chosen education. Asterisk what's going to happen to me? Tommy asked as they loaded the last box. Asterisk Margaret knelt down to his level, placing her hands gently on his shoulders. You're going to be just fine, Tommy. You're smart and kind and brave. You're a new teacher. We'll see how special you are. Asterisk, but Margaret worried. She worried as she spent her days at home, applying for positions at other schools, most of which were reluctant to hire someone who'd been terminated, regardless of the circumstances. She worried when she drove past Jefferson Elementary and saw Tommy's small figure waiting for the bus. She worried when she heard through the teacher grapevine that he'd become withdrawn again, that his grades were slipping. Asterisk 3 months later, Margaret received an unexpected phone call. Asterisk Mrs. Sullivan, this is Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the new principal at Jefferson Elementary. I'd like to meet with you, if you're available. Asterisk Margaret's heart skipped. She'd heard that Principal Harrison had been transferred to the district office following several complaints about his leadership style. Of course, Dr. Chen. When would be convenient? Asterisk they met the next afternoon in the school library, surrounded by the familiar smell of books and the soft afternoon light that Margaret remembered so well. Dr. Chen was a woman in her early 50s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. Asterisk I've been reviewing personnel files and talking with teachers about the culture here. Dr. Chen began. Your name comes up frequently. I've heard about Tommy Henderson, about your termination, about the kind of teacher you were. Asterisk Margaret remained quiet, unsure where this conversation was heading. Asterisk I've also met Tommy, Dr. Chen continued. He's struggling. His teacher mentions that he often asks about you, that he seems to have lost some of his enthusiasm for learning. She paused, leaning forward slightly. I believe good teaching isn't just about curriculum standards and test scores. It's about seeing a whole child, meeting them where they are, and helping them flourish. Asterisk Margaret felt a flutter of hope, but tried to manage her expectations. Asterisk I'd like to offer you a position. Margaret, not just any position. I'd like you to head up a new program we're developing. a student support initiative that bridges the gap between academic instruction and social-emotional needs. It would involve identifying children who need extra support, coordinating with families and community resources, and yes, sometimes providing immediate assistance when a child needs warm clothes or a nutritious snack. Margaret's eyes filled. With tears, you mean? I mean that caring for children shouldn't be grounds for termination. It should be celebrated and supported. Dr. Chen smiled. Tony's mother has given permission for you to work with him specifically. She's grateful for everything you did and wants what's best for her son. The following Monday, Margaret walked back through the doors of Jefferson Elementary. Teachers who'd missed her welcomed her with warm hugs. Students from previous years ran up to greet her in the hallways, and in the main office, Tommy was waiting with Dr. Chen, holding a handmade card that read, "Welcome back, Mrs. Sullivan. I missed you," as Margaret settled into her new role. She realized that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as our most difficult challenges. Her willingness to risk everything for one child had led to a position where she could help many children. Her act of courage had inspired others to speak up for what they believed in. Tommy flourished under the new arrangement. His grades improved, his confidence grew, and his mother, with connections to community resources that Margaret helped facilitate, found stable employment that allowed her to spend more time with her son, on quiet afternoons. As Margaret worked in her new office, she often thought about the lesson life had taught her, that kindness is never wasted, that standing up for what's right is always worthwhile, and that sometimes losing everything opens the door to finding something even better. The children of Jefferson Elementary were learning to, watching the adults around them choose compassion over convenience, love over liability. They were learning that in a world that often feels cold and impersonal, there are still people who will fight for what matters most, the well-being of every child who walks through their doors. And that, Margaret knew, was the most important lesson of all.